How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into 14P Fantasy. I am your host, Justin Wright. Today, we are talking 3 overvalued players in your Dynasty startup drafts. We're using DLF's ADP. This is the sequel to undervalued players. So we're excited to get into it. As you can see, I am joined by Marco, the other half of 14P. What's going on?
What's up?
This is what back-to-back videos now for us.
Look at us, man. We're making moves over here.
It's unbelievable chemistry. That's really what we're working with. Before we get into it, guys, remember we do have the Patreon page. We have our rookie rankings that are tiered and broken out both positionally as well as overall rookie rankings. We have Dynasty rankings. I think Marco broke down almost 240 players on that list.
Yeah, a little
if
over.
not more. Yeah, exactly. And then we also have tiered positional Dynasty rankings that Marco put together. So check all of that out. If you subscribe, donate, whatever you want to call it, to that top tier, we'll actually break down one of your Dynasty teams for you, give you trade advice, how to position, where to move, how to attack the 2022 season. Wow, 2022, that's crazy.
Here we are.
The 2022 NFL season coming up here. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on over on the Patreon. Check that out. The link is in the description. All right, Marco, you ready? Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Number 1 on the list, we have Trey Lance, and this ADP, overall ADP, is at least for 1 quarterback leagues. Superflex, his positional ranking doesn't change, so keep that in mind. But Trey Lance is coming off the board as QB9 right now. The guys he is going ahead of, you have Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields,
right,
Russell Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. If you want to include Matthew Stafford, I don't really want to, but he is technically going ahead of Stafford on that list.
Yeah.
It just feels too high given the unknowns of Trey Lance, right, Marco?
Well, 100%. So, I mean, I'm thinking about the names you said. Aaron Rodgers. I don't know about Russell Wilson 100% because we don't really know what's going to happen with him. Looks like the Seahawks might be heading into a massive overhaul potentially this offseason.
I hope so.
They kind of need to, but I mean, they could trade Russ, they could trade DK, they could trade Lockett, they could do a lot of things. So I'm not going to talk about Russ specifically, but Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, all of those guys in a dynasty startup, 1 QB league, I'm probably going to take over Lance. And I think Aaron Rodgers is probably the one that people are like scratching their head a little bit because he's older, but he's still Aaron Rodgers and he's going to I'm about 85% sure he's leaving the Packers at this point. I thought he was going to maybe come back if the Packers succeeded in this playoff run, and they did not. And so I think really Rodgers has had enough of Green Bay. I think most of the Green Bay players who are about to be free agents are really excited to move on. And so I think Rodgers anywhere else is still going to be a top 8 QB probably. And especially if he lands somewhere like Denver, he could be the number 1 QB. He genuinely could be with what the weapons they have. So obviously it's not like a forever thing, but for the next 1 to 3 years, he's in that conversation.
When you're drafting startups, 3-year window. I am looking at the next 3 years, most likely,
especially at quarterback.
Especially at quarterback. Running back's a little bit different. I may be looking at a shorter window. But
exactly.
Quarterback, it's just you have time. You can pivot. And again, even in a super flex, I want Rodgers over Trey Lance because I know what I'm going to get with him. And on top of it, I want Justin Fields and I want Trevor Lawrence. I wanted them ahead of Trey Lance last season.
Yep, same here.
I don't put really any stock into what they did year 1. So I'm not putting Trey Lance ahead of him. And when you're looking just at overall ADP, right, Marco, in your 1 quarterback leagues, it's not as if they are, 91, 92, 93. You have almost a 20 pick difference between Trey Lance and Trevor Lawrence, and they have very similar ceilings, probably going to have similar production. So I just don't get that giant gap there.
Well, and honestly, all of that aside, even, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are probably better immediately, and I think Justin Fields has the highest ceiling of them all. And I think Trevor Lawrence. Well, we are Bears fans, but I do think Justin Fields can do both things that we hope for in a fantasy quarterback really, really well. And just we'll see what happens, obviously, with coach and what they do to their team. Same with Trevor Lawrence. But Trey Lance, one of the big things, I was a huge Trey Lance fan last offseason, but one of the big things you have to remember is like, yeah, Jimmy G might not be the starter, might not even be on the 49ers next year, but Jimmy G has been atrocious. Like he's been horrible. And Trey Lance hasn't gotten opportunity still. That's not on accident. Shanahan wouldn't just say, well, Jimmy G's our guy, even though Jimmy G is throwing the ball 10 times a game horribly. You know, like that's something that isn't alarming long-term, but it's alarming enough to make him nowhere near my top 10 QBs, especially when you look at the names you just listed. Looking at that 1 to 3 year window, I'm taking all of them ahead of Trey Lance.
Yep, I'm with you. All right, moving on. I think we kind of – sorry, Lance. We kind of beat him to death there.
I like Trey Lance, but at his price, if he was going at Justin Fields' price, that's a different story. I would like him.
11. Yeah, I agree. All right, moving on. And this one, I know you don't necessarily agree with. I do, though, and that's why it's on this list.
You're a professional Mixon hater. I get it.
I said nice things about him this season. He did good. Good job, Joe.
Yeah. He did well.
Yeah, well, good for you, buddy. Yeah, I'm not a linguist. So Joe Mixon currently coming off the board as RB8. He is going to be 26 heading into next year. He has 2 years left on his current deal with the Bengals. Year 3, they have a club option, but I mean, at that point, he's going to be 28 years old. Joe Burrow is up for a contract extension, as is T. Higgins. They may even look to lock Jamar Chase up early. So there's a few things I think that point to Joe Mixon really only probably having 2 years left with the Bengals. And he's at that running back age cliff for me, right? He is 20. He's going to be 26 heading into this season. Right now, he is going ahead of, and these are just some names I prefer 100% over Joe Mixon in a startup. Again, it's different if you are competing, and you know it depends how you want to look at things. But Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers. In a startup, I am always going to lean the younger running backs or guys I think that, you know, have 3 to potentially 4 years left based on play style, you know, looking at Austin Eckler there. So just Joe Mixon, his ADP in the second round when you could grab Cam Akers, you know, at the back of the third, Antonio Gibson at the start of the third. I just don't get it, especially with age. That's the thing. Next season, he's going to drop an ADP again. He'll be outside the top 12 running backs.
Right.
I don't love buying into depreciating assets during my startup draft.
Totally. And I understand that. And obviously, you know, Mixon owners haven't always been ecstatic with what his production is. But I think you got to think about this through the lens of the situation. And normally that's not like the big thing we look at when you look at dynasty assets. It's like, what's the situation? Because it's going to change. But I think Mixon, like you said, Mixon says, you said Mixon might have like 2 years left with the Bengals. That's probably the best 2 years he might have in his career. You know, like I genuinely think with what that Bengals team is doing, we could be looking at that. I don't think RB8 is absurd. I don't think sure, RB8 to 12, I would be fine taking Mixon there. RB8 is probably the highest point in that, but I don't think that's like what massively overvalued. He was RB4 this year. Like I said, I think he's a top 8 to 10 running back for the next couple of years. And really, when I looked at that list you said, I think Antonio Gibson's the only guy I would 100% take in front of him. The other guys I like and I would get if you wanted to, but for me, Mixon is something Mixon's a player that's really interesting because of not just the context and age situation, but just what's happening with that overall offense for the Bengals. I think that's interesting. And this isn't necessarily an undervalued stat, but it's really interesting. I've noticed this. So in the last 5 years, Mixon was the second lowest scoring RB4. Last year, David Montgomery was the lowest scoring RB4, in the last while. And I think it's really interesting because I'm curious if this is a trend that we're starting to see, because typically when you look at your top 10 running backs 8 to 10 is typically where there's a big point drop off, and especially in PPR formats. Running backs 8 to 10 are good, but there's like a 20 to 30 point gap in the last 5 years between running backs 5, 6, 7 to running backs 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that range. The last 2 years, we've also seen that 20 to 30 point drop at running back 4. So I'm curious if the running back 4 is going to be a big cutoff or if that's going to readjust over time. So I think that's something to keep an eye on because that's a major tier break. And even if you're saying Mixon's ceiling right now is running back 4, that still could be a tier break. So I think RB 8 to 12 is a perfect range for him. Like I said, RB 8, you might be buying at the ceiling, but it's still something to keep an eye on.
Yep. So I want to throw out, and we didn't talk about this pre-show, but I'm just looking at overall ADP, not just positional right now.
Yeah.
Are you taking any of these wide receivers over Joe Mixon? These are guys that are currently basically going at the same pick as him.
Yeah.
They're all picked somehow. All have an average pick of 17 or 18.
Right. Obviously, some context is going to dictate a lot of this, but
yes, a lot. Your roster build and everything, just in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson. Are you taking any of them over Joe Mixon in your startup?
Sorry, say that one more time. You said Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel,
Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, and Deontay Johnson.
Man, that's tough. Well, I think I'm probably okay taking all of them over Mixon. But it's a context thing. Like if I didn't get a running back in the first round, then I'm definitely taking Mixon.
But you can get Gibson in the third round. You don't need Mixon.
Right.
Look at that.
I guess that right now, yes, you can do that. But if you don't get Gibson, then you're screwed.
Yeah, no, then it's bad. Okay. I feel, this is one we definitely do not agree on. I don't think we ever will.
Right. Well, so where would you put Mixon at your running backs? Like 12?
Probably, RB12, RB13.
Yeah.
And I mean, that for as far as ADP goes, that pushes him into the third round.
Yeah, and I think we're just on opposite ends of the range, but I would get it if you took him at the beginning of the third round. I if you would wait and see if he fell. I get that.
Yeah, rather than an early second. I think a round discount, I'd be happy. I'm not saying I'm not drafting Joe Mixon. Like that's.
Well, and I think if people wait to do their dynasty drafts, we're going to see Cam Akers jump him. We'll probably see Antonio Gibson jump him. We might see J.K. Dobbins jump him. So
and you could.
If you get to like regular redraft season and then do your dynasty draft, then I bet he's going to be at the appropriate value.
That's fair. All right, moving on. Last guy on the list. Last week we had Juju as an undervalued player because he's getting out of Pittsburgh. We have Pat Freiermuth right now as an overvalued player. And let me be clear. We're not saying Pat Freiermuth is bad.
No, he's very good.
He is a very good tight end. He's going to be Heath Miller. That is still the comp I had coming out. That is who he's going to be. However, right now he is going ahead of Dallas Goedert, ahead of Noah Fant, ahead of Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz, Mike Gesicki, who I know you're a big fan of, and Cole Kmet. I don't think he necessarily belongs at the back of that list.
Right.
But taking him over Dallas Goedert, for me, Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, Noah Fant, I cannot pull the trigger on Pat Freiermuth at tight end 7. It just doesn't make sense. How he was utilized in the Pittsburgh offense, yes, he had plenty of red zone touches or red zone targets. That is great. However, he's 22nd amongst tight ends in air yards. He had 2 deep targets the entire season.
Yeah.
He's really, it's weird. He's very similar to Dalton Schultz, except the difference is Dalton Schultz, we know, is quarterback. We have no idea who Pat Freiermuth's quarterback is going to be the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Yeah. No, totally. I think when I think of that list, I would be okay in Dynasty taking Freiermuth over Dalton Schultz. I think Freiermuth will have more upside than Dalton Schultz. Again, I don't think it's crazy, but I think I like Freiermuth more than Schultz for the long term. Mm-hmm. I think the quarterback questions for the Steelers is a big thing. You have to figure out, what are we going to do there? How is that going to work? Are they going to bring in anyone else for this wide receiver core? Losing Juju. Obviously, they've got Claypool and Deontay.
Potentially losing Juju. Not even a guarantee. I hope so, though. I said I hope no Juju. I hope he's gone, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if he is gone. Since Big Ben is going to be leaving, I wouldn't be surprised if Juju moves on as well. Yeah. So obviously the quarterback situation there. I think Dawson Knox and Freiermuth is an interesting dynasty conversation because Dawson Knox does have – I really like Dawson Knox, but he has some games where if he doesn't get in the end zone, he's a ghost. And
that's what Freiermuth is.
Well, I agree, but I think Dawson Knox is also one of those guys who could be on a new team in the relatively near future. Who knows if the Bills bring him back in a little bit here?
I would hope, but you're right. He could.
I would hope so as well, but he could go somewhere else. I think those are the 2 names that I'm like, I wouldn't hate you if you took Brett Freiermuth ahead of them. Hopefully I don't hate you for fantasy football at all, but I think those are the two names that really stuck out of Freiermuth can be ahead of those. The rest of the names I'm kind of all in on ahead of Freiermuth.
Dallas Goedert needs to.
Dallas Goedert for sure. Noah Fant is a guy who I'm back and forth with. It depends what happens at quarterback for them. Because I think Albert O will continue to be involved. But still, I mean, his upside is higher, I think, than Pat Freiermuth.
Right. When you're looking at purely an upside, I don't think Freiermuth ever breaks into that elite tier. He's just not that type of athlete. He's not going to be utilized that type of way.
Right. He's not going to see enough targets or consistent game-to-game targets, when you're looking at the weekly fantasy game.
Right. Like Freiermuth's going directly behind TJ Hockenson. Granted, there is a clear tier break. It's about a 20-pick tier break.
Right.
But still, I don't think he's the top of that, tier 2, tier 3, whatever you want to break up the top guys. I don't think he is at the top of that list.
Again, there's a caveat here because we are Bears fans, full disclosure, but I would much rather have Cole Kmet at his price than Pat Freiermuth at his price.
Oh, at price.
At price.
Yes. Because you're looking at about a 50 pick difference.
Yeah, obviously Pat Freiermuth has done much more, but I think Cole Kmet's price, you're like, okay, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, right. Freiermuth in Dynasty clearly ahead of Cole Kmet, but pricing, that's where it gets iffy. If you're just trying to punt the position, it's different, obviously. Yeah. But all right, guys, that is all we have for you on our three overvalued players. There it is. Yeah, you got it. Again, make sure to check out the Patreon page, guys. The link is in the description. We got rookie rankings, dynasty breakdowns, early access to rookie videos. While you're watching, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, all of that good stuff. Got anything else, Marco?
No. I'm going to drop a Jameson Williams video in the next 24 to 48 hours, I think.
Yeah, are you? Are you actually?
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right, guys. As always, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.